Welcome, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Skol State of Mind podcast. As promised, I got a series of a couple of videos for me to catch up on my little hiatus, and here we go. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about Kwesi Adolpha Mensa getting his extension as soon as possible. I know a lot of people out there are not talking about this right now, but I think it's imperative to have this conversation now because I feel like this team is at a crossroads, especially with dropping two games and considering the unfortunate news with Christian Darrisaw. And, this season can go either one or two ways. Either, you know, they're going to rally together and make something out of this, or they are going to just go into the tank. So, my first topic is I really feel Kwesi needs to avoid a lame duck situation. And what I mean by avoiding a lame duck situation is him and Kevin O'Connell both signed 4-year contracts, right? They're already in their third year of their contract. I don't want Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah going into next year, his last season, as the Vikings general manager on contract, right? Because then you're pressing for whatever you do because you don't know what's going to happen behind you because you don't have a contract extension in front of you. You get what I'm saying? Like it kind of like affects everything you're going to do because it's like it's a lame duck situation. And let's just say the team doesn't start off to a good point in the season. Let's say the team starts next year. They start JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy doesn't grasp the offense quite well. In worst case scenario, the Vikings start with like 2-5 season. Like, okay, now they're going to blame the coach, but depending on what happens with Kevin O'Connell on his contract, it's like, okay, first person, let's blame the general manager because he didn't bring the proper pieces to help this team out and to help this rookie quarterback succeed. That's going into a lame duck situation. You get what I'm saying? So I think that needs to be talked about now of Kwesi actually getting this contract extension going forward. And my next topic, I'm going to break down to you guys why I feel he needs a contract extension now because, in my opinion, Kwesi has effective team management. And what I mean by that is this. Outside of the first draft, right? We can always, the first draft was not a great draft. He traded down with the Detroit Lions and, you know, drafted, we already know, Lewis Seen, Andrew Booth, those guys are no longer on the team anymore, right? Ingram is not really panning out. He has his ups and downs, blah, blah, blah. Ty Chandler, it's okay. Asamoah hasn't really panned out to be a starter or a contributor outside of, you know, um, special teams. That's it, right? Then, the second draft, he drafts, Jordan Addison. And now, we're talking about problems with Jordan Addison, all this other shit, blah, 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 right? But if you really like dissect it and you look into it, he is the type of person to like make good on his mistakes and to move forward. Because if you take the first draft, he basically wanted to be too cute and trade around and do this and do that. He didn't do that shit the second draft. Like it wasn't like I'm going to try to accumulate more picks. He was just like, okay, best player available, keep it moving. Third draft came around and he was just like, well, fuck them picks. I'm trading up to get best players available that are going to be stalemates on my team for the future. So you can see his philosophies, kind of change. And what I'm saying about his effective team management too, outside of the draft, if you really look at like what he's done in free agency, like in my last video, we talked about how, him bringing in solid, veterans like Stephon Gilmore, He signed Brian Murphy Jr. Um, who else? Shaq Griffin. All those things. Not all those things. All those players he signed. You know, in the offseason to help this team succeed. Right. And if you really like dissect that, it was like off of a tragedy. I'm going to talk about that too. And after the free agency signings, he actually kept and re-signed pillars on this team for the future, right? He made the trade in season for TJ Hawkinson, then signed them long term. That's great. You have a top 5 tight end on your team long term, right? He inherited Justin Jefferson, re-signed him to a long-term extension, right? Inherited Christian Darrisaw, signed him to a long-term extension, right? I mean, I think the next shooter to drop right now for extension, long-term extension, will probably be Cameron Bynum. Like he'll probably get his extension next. I'm not going to throw the Josh Metellus one in there as of yet, but it is what it is. And he, as I think a week ago, they renegotiated the contract of Harrison Phillips. So it's like he's doing these things like to help this team. And I feel like he's listening to his coaches and giving them the tools to succeed. And that's what a general manager is supposed to do. A general manager is supposed to like, hey, what do you guys need to succeed? Hey, coach, how can I help you guys on the field? I'm not the coach out there. And the coach is supposed to say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. Okay, I'm going to try my best to do that. Look, brought back, Cam Akers. It's not his fault that Cam Akers isn't playing. That's on Kevin O'Connell. But he went out and did that. And you have to start giving Kwesi his credit for consistently building this team for the future. And one big thing, too, that we have to say, I know we don't like talking about this. Kwesi was the one that put his foot down and said, we have to move away from Kirk Cousins. And he didn't do that, and if he didn't do that and put his foot down and say, we're moving away from Kirk Cousins, you don't have Jonathan Grenard. You don't have Van Ginkel. You don't have Blake Cashman. You may have one of those guys with Kirk Cousins still in his contract, right? Think about that. Kwesi was the one that put his foot down and said, we got to move on. Give that man his credit. And this is a big thing for me right here because I've been a Minnesota Viking fan for a long time. And the Vikings have always had a lot of off the field issues. And sometimes they don't really handle them the right way. Kwesi has handled them the right way, especially the tragedy with Kyrie Jackson. All right. This team could have faltered. This team could have broke. Even though Kyrie Jackson was a rookie coming to this team, just for a player to have, the ability to come in and play, and he's looking good in camp, and he's gonna contribute to this team, and in one moment, all that's gone, and you got to deal with the media, and this happened and that happened. Kwesi really kind of like, hey, he kept the team like together, and then weeks later, he has to deal with Jordan Addison, falling asleep at the wheel in LA on the 105 freeway. Like these are the off the field issues he has to deal with. While he's dealing with this, he's allowing Kevin O'Connell just to deal with the team. Hey, you deal with the team and coaching. I'm going to take this on. I am going to be the one that's going to take care of these issues. You have to give this man his credit because a lot of these general managers out there can't deal with that. You dealt with a passing of a player from a drunk driving incident, and a week later, you have to deal with another player that has another drunk driving incident. That's huge. That is huge. So, like, this is a lot of things you have to like. He's been doing it. And my last topic for Kwesi is this, and this is extremely important. I want y'all to put y'all thinking caps on and really, really think about this one. Freedom and security in decision making. And what I mean by that is this: if he can get his extension either now or do this off season, he will have the freedom and the security to make decisions on his own, right? Because just like I said before, we really don't know where this season is going to go. Now, I have my own personal expectations for this season. I think Kwesi probably has his own personal expectations for this season. And if Kwesi has an extension, then he can kind of see what he wants to do for this team in the long term. Maybe Kevin O'Connell is not the long-term coach of this team, because we all know that Kevin O'Connell was not Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah's first choice at coach. Now, why I'm bringing up that is I'm not saying Kevin O'Connell sucks and he should be fired, blah, blah, blah. But I'm saying is this, though. If Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah gets a contract extension now or before next season, he will have the freedom and security to do what he needs to do. You get what I'm saying? And I believe Kwesi will make the tough decisions. If this team, for some reason, just falters, just continues to go down the shithole, I believe Kwesi will make a decision that will be the best decision for this team going forward. I believe he will do that because he's a stock market guy. Kevin O'Connell's stock will be down at this point. I have to bring more stocks in. That's going to make this team a whole lot better. Now, I'm not saying I want Kevin O'Connell fired. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying he's in his third year also. And if this offense can't get it together, and if the defense can't seem to get back on the right foot, I need Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah to have a contract extension to where he has the freedom and the security to make the right decisions. Because if he doesn't, we're going to be in trouble. Think about that for a second, y'all. Really think about that for a second. For real. So that's all I got, y'all. I really thank y'all for tuning in to the Skol State of Mind podcast. I'm really doing my hardest working on these videos, trying to catch up for y'all. But you know how I end it. Skol, baby.